This is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and in this video I'm going to provide a walk through Lesson 3 in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy's Modern Arithmetic 3 course. In Lesson 1 we learned that there are two different ways to express numbers. We can express numbers with words, and we can express numbers with characters. With words and with characters. And we learned that in order to express numbers with characters, we need some system of notation, some method by which we can represent numbers with characters. And we learned that the commonly used system of notation in arithmetic is the Arabic system. In the last lesson, we learned that there are two important ways that figures are used to express numbers in the Arabic system. The first is by the use of 10 different figures, and the second is by changing the places or order of those figures. In this lesson, we're going to begin to study how this is done. Let's begin by looking at Article 3. You can see it begins right here on your page, Article 3, and we see the subject of this lesson is units of the first order. Units of the first order, or they're called units, and I'll put this in quotation marks. Units. We'll see why later in this lesson. Point number 1 under Article 3, we read, a unit or single thing is called one and is written 1. Now, here we see how to express the unit with a word. Here we see how to express the unit with a figure in the Arabic system. So we learn to express numbers first by words and then by figures or characters, just as our first lesson told us. So we're going to study how to name the first 9 numbers with the Arabic system of notation. A unit or single thing is 1, written 1. 1 unit and 1 more are named 2. So this quantity, this number, 1 unit and 1 more, are called 2. And that number is written TWO. Make sure you learn the spelling of these words. 2. And it's written with the character 2. Next, 2 units and 1 more make 3. And there we see the name of this quantity using words. And here we see how that number is expressed with a figure in the Arabic system of notation. 3 units and 1 more make a quantity named 4, F-O-U-R. And this quantity is expressed in characters with the figure 4 in the Arabic system of notation. 4 units and 1 more make a total of 5. The name given to that quantity, 4 and 1 more, is 5, spelled F-I-V-E. And it's expressed with the figure 5 in the Arabic system. 5 units and 1 more make 6, S-I-X. The name 6, or the word 6, is used to name 5 units and 1 more. And in the Arabic system, it's written with the figure we call 6. 6 units and 1 more is named 7, S-E-V-E-N, 7, and is written with the figure we call 7 in Arabic notation. 7 units and 1 more are called 8. E-I-G-H-T. 8. And are written with the figure we call 8 in Arabic notation. And lastly, 8 units and 1 more are called 9. And we express that number in figures or in characters with the figure 9. So in this column, we see how the numbers in the Arabic system, how the numbers are expressed in words. And in this second column, we see how the numbers are expressed in characters in the Arabic system of notation. This may be easy for you, but you should make sure you understand we're laying the foundation for our studies in arithmetic, and I'll warn you early on. Many of the troubles that students have later on in arithmetic are actually caused by not paying careful attention to the details of the first lessons. So even if this content of these early lessons seems familiar to you, pay careful attention and make sure you learn it exactly. Because as I said, errors in arithmetic often come from misunderstanding the simple points learned in the beginning of arithmetic. Be sure that you can name and write each name for each number and its figure in the Arabic system of notation. Let's move on to point number 2. These 9 characters are called significant figures. These 9 characters are called significant figures because they denote or signify something. These 9 characters are called significant figures because they signify something or denote something. To understand this point, it's helpful to first study the next point in point number 3. The character, which we'll call 0, this figure, called naught, stands for nothing. Its use is to fill vacant, that means empty, orders or places in a number. So the character that we call 0 or naught is used to fill empty orders or empty places in Arabic notation. The symbol 0 is also called cipher and 0. So the number 0, which really isn't a number, it's just a figure that's used to mark an empty order in the Arabic system of notation. The number 0 signifies nothing. It marks an empty place in a number in the Arabic notation. All of the other figures, the other 9 figures, because they signify something, they're called significant figures. 0 is not a significant figure because it actually signifies nothing. Let's move on to point number 4. When a figure stands alone or in the first place at the right of a number, it represents one or more units of the first order. When a figure stands alone or in the first place on the right-hand side of a number, and make sure you know what the right-hand side is. Some students still have a difficult time with left and right. Make sure you know which side is the right. When a figure stands alone or in the first place at the right of a number, it represents one or more units of the first order. So the first order in Arabic notation is on the right side of the number. And the first order, or the first place starting on the right is called the units place. We'll learn this in the next point, point 5. Units of the first order are called simply units. Units of the first order are called units, and the place they occupy is called the units place. So the first place on the right side of a number in the Arabic system of notation, the first place is called the first order, it's called the units place, and the number that stands in that place is called the unit. This is the first part of expressing numbers with characters using the Arabic system. So that's all for lesson 3. We've learned the 9 significant figures used in the Arabic system. We've also learned that the character 0 is used to mark empty places in Arabic numbers. And we learned that the units place is the first place on the right side of a number in the Arabic system. Now it's time for you to study this lesson for mastery. Make sure you study and memorize each point, complete your lesson assessment, and we'll continue studying the Arabic system of notation in Modern Arithmetic 3. I hope that's a helpful walk through this lesson. God bless your studies.